Oh, shoot. Oh. Oh. The hell? Alright, that's better. Hello, subscribers, patrons, family, fans, followers, supporters, and generally anyone who happens to stumble across my videos. This is Johnston Blackhorse, and I welcome you to another How to Art Animation Edition with Easytoon. Hooray! Oh man, so out of it today. Sorry for the uh, tardiness of this video. I've just been working on this animation for the last several days. I was hoping to get this done over the weekend, but it's just so intense. Oh, why do I do this to myself? Why do I make things so complicated? Because it's awesome. Shut up, you. Oh, jeez. Well, I guess if you want to see what I have so far, I may as well show you what I've been up to. And just show you a little bit because I've been previewing this thing a lot. So, yeah, just a bunch of cleanup work, a bunch of like, just trying to get this thing done. But anyway, here we go. Wait, who's all here? Well, at least there's one person watching. There's at least one person here. So okay, let me just show what I've got done over the weekend. Yes, kneel before your new animation god and rejoice, or quake with fear. Yep. It took all weekend to clean up all this animation here. Oh man. You know, it'd be going a lot faster if I had like a Cintiq Wacom tablet or something similar because again, like I've stated before, like it takes a lot of the guesswork out of drawing because when I'm having to draw on a tablet like this, it's like I'm having to look at the screen to look at the lines I'm drawing, but my drawing hand is on a different surface. But if I were able to watch the surface that I'm drawing on, there'd be a lot less guesswork. So once this is done, I'm gonna focus on doing like some um, cool, like sexy loops that everyone can be a fan of or just enjoy, and also gonna draw up some. Well, a lot of furry auctions to help fund that endeavor to get me a monitor tablet. So, like, just doing animations of this caliber would be a lot easier and go a lot faster. But anyway, let me just. Do I need to preview it again? Ah, screw it. Why not? Wait. Let me center this a little bit more so you can see, for the most part, everything that's been going on. Yes, kneel before your new animations god and rejoice, or quake with fear. Yeah, so that's what I've been working on. So I'm gonna save that, exit out of this program. I'll get back to it after I'm done with this how to art. There's not that much farther to go. Like all the complex animation portions are almost finished. Just got to clean up the rest of it, color it, and then the rest of the animation is going to be very basic, very simple, but let's get on with this animation tutorial. Okay, let me fit it in the screen here. Get rid of some of this unnecessary stuff. New. Okay. So here we have the Easytoon again. And if you've all been, or for those who watch this later, if you've been watching this my previous tutorial, like I did go over like the toolbars and like everything, like pretty much the whole setup more or less. And again, like it's been a while since I've like used this program, so there are some portions that I'm also relearning, but again, it's like I'm teaching, but also it's somewhat of a relearning experience for me. But anyway, this How to Art animation edition with Easytoon, we're going over the like one of the basic shit, one of the basic exercises you do in when you learn how to animate. And one of those basic exercises is animating a, what the heck did I just do? Oh, great. All right, all right, all right. All right, that's weird. Huh. For some reason, jeez. Learning experience. Okay, so in this basic animation exercise, you animate a falling sack of flour, just a generic flour sack. Turn down my eraser. So here I have like just a generic flour sack, and got these little like tied off, more or less tassels or whatever you call them, just something that somewhat cartoony. And you start off by drawing it at the top here because you're just gonna animate it like falling down to the ground, which is like at the bottom. So I'm gonna go ahead and just copy this frame here, copy, new frame, paste, new frame, paste, new frame, paste. And I'm pasting it like several times just to get the sense that it's like hanging in the air there. And then and when you start to have the sack fall, like start off on this one. Whoops, gotta have the pencil pencil tool selected. So initially, when the invisible force that's holding this flour sack up, when that invisible force lets go, your sack your flour sac is going to start to begin its descent, but it's going to begin somewhat slowly. So that's when this frame, where it's initially let go, it moves ever so slightly, just to give that somewhat initial sense that it's beginning its fall. Next frame, and with the next frame, as we continue to go down, like this is where you start exercising more of the whole concept of squash and stretch in animation. So here, as the flower sac is beginning to fall, like it's gonna start stretching out a little bit to signal that it's going faster. And this, like, these little tassels on the corners, this is where they come in handy to indicate the movement through the air as it falls. Next frame. Oh yeah. Again, like these buttons up here kind of show the how many frames backward or forward that you can see between each frame. If you've been following along with the previous tutorials. So at this point, like, the tassels are going to be more or less pointing straight up on my flower sac animation. Next frame. And I think that'd be falling way too fast. And as you practice these animations, you get a good sense of, like, timing and spacing. Just like how far to space your frames apart from another, or from each other, to get that certain sense of movement or speed in whatever movement you're getting at. And when first starting out, like I know, like, a lot of people might get confused of, like, the spacing and the frame rate, because hold on, let me go back to that previous frame. It's a little off center, because when okay, there we go. When first starting out in animation, like some people are under the misconception that they believe that more frames equals more speed, when it's actually the opposite. So say that you want to animate something going from point A to point B, and if getting in between point A to point B takes only one frame, then that thing's like moving pretty fast. It's like instantaneous. But the more frames you put in there, like say instead of one frame you put in 5 frames, then that object is moving like it has to take those 5 frames to get from one side to the next, or from one point to the next. So you know, like when you wrap your mind around that concept, it's like the more frames you have in there, like the slower an object moves. And I remember when I was taking animation lessons at the Fly By Night 2-year college that I went to, that was often one of the um, misconceptions that animation students kept having, is that they believed, or they were under the impression that like more frames equaled like more speed. But no, that's not the case. More frames equals smoother motion, but fewer frames is like for like either rapid movement, or I guess depending on like what frame rate you're working at. Oh, that's probably something I should have covered, like when you're animating with frame rates or whatever. Like when you're animating in ones, twos, or threes. I think I'm a little too tired to cover that. Anyway, I'm going a few like couple frames back here, just to indicate like I'm gonna draw like a little shadow. Oh, fuck this! I don't know how to get rid of this stupid like circular corona thing. It's like I'm not trying to. I don't know how to get rid of that. I've been trying to turn that off, and I don't know where to find that option. And it gets in the way of a lot of my designs. I don't know what it's for, but it's not for designers or artists, because it really messes up like a lot of the work that we try to do as designers or artists. I don't even know what it's for. Anyway, what I'm doing is like indicating or drawing like a little shadow under the falling flower sack for this frame, and for the next frame I take that shadow and just draw a little bigger, just to give like a marker of where the ground is. So in this frame, this is where the uh, the flower sac actually hits the ground. So with this, there's going to be more squash and stretch here. Like for the frames where the sac was falling through the air, you got like a lot of stretch. But now that it hits the ground, it's impacting the ground. That's where you're going to get the squashing effect. So the portion that hit the ground is going to squash out, and these little tassels on the edge here, I'm going to draw them just kind of like bowing out, but they haven't quite hit the ground yet because they're still catching up. And as for the top part of the flower sac, um, it's still falling to catch up to the rest of its body. So in the next frame here, and with the bouncing ball, like we had the whole like bouncing animation where it would squash and stretch, like it would stretch as it reached toward the ground, and then when it hit the ground, it would squash, and then when it was bouncing back up, it would stretch toward the into the arc that it would come up into before it descends again. But with the flour sack doesn't won't bounce like a bouncing ball, but it'll like just squash when it hits the ground, but then it'll try to refill its shape again. But I think depending on what effect you're trying to go with the flour sack, um, like you won't see that much of a bounce, but it'll definitely do some sort of rebounding type movement. So here for the bottom portion of the flour sack, it's like after the initial squashing of it, like it'll try to reform into itself, where the top portion of the flour sack is like catching up to the rest of it. So actually, I think I drew this portion a little too high since it's still falling into itself or collapsing into itself. And this whole exercise is just to not only like practice squash and stretch, but to play around with the volume of an object in your animations. Like how does that volume or the effects of gravity and hitting other objects like affect the volume and the mass of whatever you're animating. So as you can see here, like after the initial like fall, like it's trying to shape back into itself, but that's somewhat of like a um, kind of like the sort of like the bounce back effect like we got with the ball, but it's not going to like leave the ground again, being like a flour sack. Once it hits the ground, it's going to stay on the ground, but again, it's going to like try to form back into itself before it finally comes into its final resting position. And right now, I'm drawing the frames where it is getting into the position where it's completely at rest. Like there's going to be no more movement or no more um, reverberation of like yeah, after the impact. And I think this might more or less do it. So with this, that's 18 frames. And going to go ahead and hit this play button, or you can hit the space bar. I'm going to go ahead and hit the space bar. Just bring this over here. And there we are. It's looking pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and copy this last frame. Did it copy? Come on, copy, man. Paste. And just paste it for a few more frames. And then go ahead and hit play. And there we have our little falling flower sack animation. All done in Easytoon. And it's a free to download program. And if you want to learn animation with like a very simple program that's easy to learn and somewhat easy to use depending on what kind of equipment you have. I don't know what's up with this stupid like circular corona thing that keeps appearing every time I try to draw, but it's a nuisance. And I've been trying to figure out how to deactivate it because it just doesn't need to exist. Oh, friggin' get off my computer. I don't know how to get rid of it. I'll probably like look up how to deactivate it or something because I don't even know what it is. Like some sort of pen and paper type deal program, or I don't know. I don't know. All I know is it's annoying. But anyway, yeah. Um, Easytoon's free to download. It's easy to use. Just it's pretty intuitive. Like just click around with all the different buttons and tools that you have there, and just trial and error. You'll figure out what does what, and yeah. So I think this does it for this this episode of How to Art Animation Edition with Easytoon. And um, if you want to support the creation of more tutorials like this, video tutorials or art content from me, I have a Patreon page. The link is in the description below. Check out my Patreon if you like what you see there. There's a lot of free content there. If you like what you see, then go ahead and think about becoming a patron by hitting that become a patron button. And if Patreon's not your thing, I also have a GoFundMe account, so that link is also in the description below. And if you still want to donate some dollars or some change or whatever, and then hit that link and donate whatever. And if you want to catch up on my life story or just see more free art from me, like I do have an autobiographical blog in which it pretty much contains like a lot of my life events, and it does contain like a lot of artwork that I've produced over the years. So check that out. The link is in the description below. And I'm also a member of DeviantArt for Affinity and Ink Money. So if you're a member of any of those websites, you can start following me, watching me, subscribing to me, or whatever. And if you feel like it, like leave me a comment or note me or message me. Just tell me how you're doing, or just give me some suggestions, or maybe even a request. I don't know. I'll get to it when I get to it. But yeah. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, give me a like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell button, and thank you. Thanks for watching. And like always, I'll check you later. Sweet. Anyway, yeah, that was pretty cool. That was pretty quick.